Hello and welcome back to this part 10 of modelling a Mustang in Fusion 360. In the last episode we kind of added some features to the hub, and we'll be adding a few more in this episode. So first of all, I drew that slot at the bottom last episode, right at the very end, and in this episode I also want to what I want to do now is I want to draw the slots that kind of rotate around the center of the hub. So there are 10 slots that rotate the one that I've already drawn, and then 5 ones, you see how it kind of skips a slot on the inner ring. So at first what I do is I actually draw it directly above, and the reason why I do this is because vertical lines are they're kind of easier. They're easier to work with. You don't have to worry about angles. And I could have got around this by, instead of drawing at the bottom of the wheel, if I'd have drawn it at the top of the wheel, which is currently out of shot, there would have been both sets of lines. But you see how I'm drawing these lines? I'm not actually drawing them over anything. I'm trying to picture those shapes just to the left and just to the right of it. But soon I kind of give up, because it is quite a stupid thing to do. But yeah. So yeah, having a look at it, and I've kind of, I don't know, just play around for a little bit, seeing if I could figure it out, but I thought, no, sod it, I'll go this way. So to do this, I need to know the angle of that the kind of the line that I've just drawn. And the way you do that, I mean, it's simple maths. There are 10 spokes on the outside and 5 spokes on the inside. So I know that 360 divided by 5 is 72. That's just like a simple bit of maths you can do in your head. And then half of that again, because it's like 1/10 of the gap. So there, it lines up with the bottom sketch that I've already drawn. So it's basically 1/10 of 360. First I think I typed 35, and then I change it because it's 36. So yeah, 36 degrees. There we go. And so now I know that that's lined up. So last time I used the offset tool and then drew some arcs, and I begin to do it, but then I cancel it because there is a slot tool in the sketch section. So slot, and then select that one, and then you click two points on that line. They should automatically kind of coincident to that line. So what I mean is they should automatically attach to that line. One way you can actually guarantee that they're attached to it is if you draw the slot off of the line and then use the constraints to attach it after, because sometimes it might look like it's attached to the line and it might not be, but in this case I do know it is. So then given that some dimensions, and that starting to look a lot more similar to the shape that you can see on the canvas. I know the canvas is quite blurry, and that's because I'm so far zoomed in on such a large image, but I can still make out the shapes behind it. So that looks a lot better. And then just trying to get rid of those blue lines, because I know the constraints. No, I know they're unconstrained, so they can currently slide up and down, and I can fix that by giving a dimension between that dot that I've currently selected and that one up there. And then just having that across, and then typing in just an integer as per usual. There we go. So now I have the two shapes, and so what I should have done at this point is actually, while I'm still in the sketch, I should have circular patterned those two entities around, and I will talk in a short while about what I did and why I made a mistake not to do it. So I extrude these cuts, and this time I use the to object feature, so where it says start rather than just being from the plane, I use the to object feature, and that just kind of angles them. So now when you see, rather than extruding like flat, they're on the angle that the wheel is on. So that's why that happens. Yeah. So the reason why this is a mistake to do it in this way is because when I go to circular pattern those two features, the problem is one of the features I've got a pattern 10 times, and one of the features I've only got a pattern 5 times, but I can't do that in one circular feature. I have to do that twice, because you can't select something to go around a circle 5 times while something else is 10 times. They're just two different operations. So what I actually do is I go to do the circular pattern and click features. Well, they're both in the same feature, those two cuts. So instead of me being able to click one of those cuts, they're both together. So that causes me a problem because I've patterned it 10 times and I don't need those 10 cuts. See, in the middle, that's 5 too many. So then I have to go back and change the extruded cut so that it's only one of those sketch entities. So I choose that one. And then I make a second extruded cut that's a different feature for the other slot. And going back to why I should have done it in the sketch, the circular pattern in the sketch, basically if I'd have circular patterned it in the sketch, I could have extruded all the sketch at once, and it would have taken out 3 features on the feature tree at the bottom. So there are 3 extra ones that really aren't required here. So this is a second extrude, which I shouldn't have had to have done. And then I do 2 circular patterns as well. So just moving that back. I'm hoping I'm not being too quick with this, what I'm saying, for you to understand, but yeah, so I have to do those as 2 separate features if I'm doing it in this procedure. But like I was kind of mentioning in the last episode, there are many ways to do things. You know, the phrase "there's more than one way to skin a cat," or if you're not aware of that phrase, that is a typical phrase. But it's true, and knowing which one is really important. So in this case, I just do it the long way around. But really, it would be good practice not to do this. So even then I've selected both features, but I don't want both, I just want one. So you can click them down in that feature tree at the bottom. So there we go. And then I want that one pattern 10 times. So there we go, 10. And that fits the shape. And then I want the other one pattern 5 times. So that last circular pattern and the circular pattern I'm doing now, I wouldn't have had to have done if I'd have patterned the sketch instead. It would have been a pattern in the sketch and then 1 extruded cut, and that was it. Whereas in this case, there's 2 extruded cuts and 2 circular patterns as kind of features in the tree. So yeah, could have definitely cut down on them, but there we go. That's kind of finished now. Well, almost. I'm going to add 1 extra feature, and this feature that I'm about to add, it's not kind of in the actual car. Like, the car doesn't have this feature, but I do this feature for a reason, and it's basically adding a little hub thing on the center of that, on the center of the wheel. I will explain exactly why I do it once I've sketched it out. So yeah, on that section I want to add a bigger kind of hub thing that has a bit of a radius to it. gold thing that's on the wheel. I'm going to enlarge it a bit and put a slight radius to it. So I do that by doing a typical revolve extrude and joining it onto the wheel. So first I've got to take a sketch from that plane there. Create a sketch. And the easiest way to figure out where the hub is to turn it on another angle and then just using the project tool, project that hub onto this sketch so that I know exactly where it is. You can just about make it out, that kind of pink line. And so I'm gonna create a little kind of hub cap sort of thing that comes all the way out to level with the tire. So I do that by kind of creating this kind of curved arc outwards. That's a 3-point arc, and giving it some dimensions just to constrain it. So almost there. We've got to add. Actually, it's a bit further away, but yeah, you can kind of make out what the shape I'm doing here. It's kind of a rectangle where the bottom edge is curved, and once rotated, that will kind of create a kind of a little a shape that kind of flares out a bit, like a wine glass, but without the hollow bit in the middle. So you can see the kind of shape I'm making. So I'll start kind of explaining why I'm doing what I'm about to do. So this shape I'm actually creating is not for the purpose of aesthetics or to be accurate to the Mustang. It's actually for rendering purposes. So I did kind of a 3-month placement where I did a lot of designing, but I used to do a ton of renders for all these expos, kind of across the globe actually, but focused mainly in Europe and America. But I would do the renders for this company, this airport seating company, and I'd have to like create leathers and metals and kind of make them as accurate as possible. So one of the things I learned over this kind of time is that the best way to figure out if a material is rendering well, or if it's like the right kind of shade, is to have a concave shape and a convex shape in your model, just to kind of see how things, like if things are too reflective, if things are too light. So I've added this kind of shape, and once rotated it will be a concave shape, purely so that I would be able to see it when I render it and say, okay, this is too reflective, it looks too shiny, or this is too dull, or this is the wrong color. And so I've kind of got into a habit with some projects. It's just to put like a little model that's concave or convex just on the outside to measure kind of how the colors working. So for the metal on the hub, it's really good for me to have this little section I'm about to create, and yeah, purely for rendering purposes, this shape. Absolutely nothing to do with accuracy. But yeah, so that concaveness. Usually when you have a concave shape, it's a bit more reflective than it is naturally. So now you see the shape I'm on about. That front face is slightly dimpled in, slightly concave, and so yeah, for rendering purposes, that's really handy for me. Just for on the wheel, because otherwise all the rest of the surfaces were kind of flat on that wheel. I know they're rotated, but other than the actual tire, the actual inner hub is all quite flat shapes and sharp cuts. So having something that has kind of that curvature, it's really handy from a rendering point of view. I'm not saying that you'll need to do this, but yeah, just worth knowing. Anyway, I think that's gonna be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it.